Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, buddy. Thank you. Appreciate it. Welcome. Welcome. We are going to have some fun today. I guarantee you're going to have some great notes. In fact, every page of notes you take will be worth about $1,000. So take notes fast. We're going to talk about the world of persuasion, influence. In fact, are we all in persuasion? Yes or yes? Parents, are you in persuasion? Motivate that impossible teenager as a manager, as a leader. In sales, are we all in sales? Yes, no matter what we do, this is the power tool of persuasion, and we're going to teach you how persuasion has changed. Would you agree with me that persuasion has changed in the last 20 years? Yes or yes? It is. That's what we're going to be talking about. In fact, how many of you make an extra $1,000 a week? Raise your hands. 2,000? How many of you want to make more than that? How many aren't going to raise your hands no matter what I do? Okay, there's a few of you. Okay, just checking who that is. Well, take some great notes. That was one or two ideas that you're going to get today is going to dramatically change your life and change your income. Because it's all about persuasion and influence. And did you learn it in school? They didn't teach us in school. We pick it up as we go along, and this is one of the most powerful skills that we can learn. Everything you want in life is on the other side of persuasion. Whether it be real estate, network marketing, whatever business you're in, it's all about persuasion, motivation, and influence. Because you ever had somebody that you were talking to, they liked your product, they wanted your product, they needed your product, they could afford your product, it was a slam dunk, everything was perfect, and they didn't buy. Has it ever happened to you? Wow, what happened? That power. What about you? Have you ever gone in the store and you're like, not going to buy, not going to buy, not going to buy, not going to buy, and you walked out with everything? What happened? What is that power to persuade, influence, to move people? You've met people that you've connected with automatically. You've met people that have repelled you. We're going to talk about the difference between the two, some different things that really help you out. And I'm going to teach you some things today that I've never taught before. Because I'm always studying the world of persuasion and influence, what's changing, how it's helping people. Now, what if you could take that power to persuade and put it in a bottle? Put it in an aerosol can. How much would that be worth to you? Have you thought about that? You're talking to someone, no, I don't think so. Shh. Oh, I'll take 3. Wow, how much would that be worth? Now, the scary thing is that they've actually found, it's a hormone called oxytocin, that when people smell it, they're more trusting of people. Isn't that kind of scary? Now, they're saying they're using it for mental disorders, but you get that in the wrong hands, some strange things could happen. They're more trusting. And so we're going to spend some time talking about persuasion, motivation, influence. Take some great notes today. We're going to have a lot of fun. And understand the power to influence is critical. Get what you want, when you want. And in the process, you're going to win friends for life. I'm not talking about the old style persuasion. We've heard many times that society has taught us the wrong thing, haven't they? Has society taught us the wrong thing about wealth and about persuasion? Would you agree with that? These are actually road signs that we found. And we get these mixed signals all the time. Well, what's right? What should we do? We learn growing up that the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Little children growing up, they complain, whine, and even adults do that, don't they? They complain, whine, and moan, and get the squeaky wheel gets the grease. But we're getting to the point in society where if we'll give you oil a few times, but then the squeaky wheel gets replaced. People aren't going to put up with that anymore. They don't want to do that. And that's what it's all about, because people don't want to be pushed into a corner. Because if you go to anybody and say, today I'm going to persuade you, what's going to happen? They're going to resist. You could have the best product in the world, but if they feel like you're trying to persuade them, they're going to resist just because it's human nature. In fact, my wife was taking my son. He was about, 4 or 5 at the time. He was in the back of the car, and they said, go ahead. And his friend was with him. And she says, go ahead and buckle up. We need to leave. And he knows how to buckle up. And he says, I can't do it. I can't do it. I just can't do it. And he was looking at his friend, and she says, just buckle up. So she had to pull over, buckle him up, and then he turns to his friends and says, you see what I can make my mom do? Wow. And that's what people feel sometimes with persuasion and influence. How does it happen? How does it work? And we're going to spend time talking about the difference between persuasion and influence and even coercion. Because when you have a boss that says, do it or you're fired, is that persuasion? No, that's coercion, isn't it? There's short-term compliance versus long-term influence. And that's what we want to spend time talking about today. It says, the computer says I need to upgrade my brain to be compatible with its new software. And that's what we're going to do today, is upgrade your brain, give you some new skills, talk about some things happening. Just want to tell you a little bit about my persuasion journey. I realized early in life that everything we want is on the other side of persuasion. And let's see how many people are honest out there. How many of you have met somebody that didn't seem that sharp, but that sold circles around you? Well, a few honest hands out there. Wow, where does that come from? Is it schooling? Is it education? They just pick it up on the streets? And even when you talk to high producers and they tell you what to do, a lot of times they're not even sure what they do. It's hard for them to transfer it to you. And I learned this early on growing up, selling door-to-door baseball candy that only the neighbors that knew me would buy, right? And then that a lot of these things didn't work. In kindergarten, I was painting this beautiful picture. It was for a contest at the end of the year. And the teacher came by and said, it looks good. And I thought that was it. I was going to win it all. And there's a girl next to me. She was a little smaller than I was. She had blonde hair. And I said, I'm going to win it all. She's all, no, you're not. I go, look at it. This is a beautiful picture. It was it was a seascaper under the ocean. There was a gold, and there was this beautiful sea monster. And the stars were aligned. It was just beautiful. I knew I was going to win. I was trying to convince her that she was going to vote for me, that I was going to win the best painting because it was the best sea monster that anybody had ever painted. And I tried to convince her, and she said, no, I don't like it, I can't tell what it is. So with my great persuasion skills, I took the blue paint and poured it over her blonde hair. And that's what a lot of people do with persuasion. They try and they force it, even with children. Because the challenge is this, is that it's so much easier to use the lower form of persuasions, do it or else. Because if you try to get your children to eat vegetables, what's the worst vegetable out there? What is it? Brussels sprouts. You say, Johnny, eat your Brussels sprouts. Oh, vitamin D and vitamin A, they're just so good for you. And what's Johnny say? No. And then you kind of go down the ladder of persuasion. Well, if you eat, I'm your parent, eat your Brussels sprouts. No. Well, I'll give you ice cream if you eat your Brussels sprouts. No. And then what do you end up doing? You eat those Brussels sprouts because a lot of times it's easier and the other forms aren't working. And then most people haven't been taught those forms of persuasion. And that's what I learned in kindergarten and growing up. And when I came to the university, I needed a job to support myself, and I had two options. I had a friend that came to me and says, let's go do telemarketing. I'm in telemarketing right now. You can make $500 to $1,000 a week part-time. Thinking, wow. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, telemarketing, I'm going to call. I don't know if I want to do that. I go, do they guarantee that? Of course, the door marked security. Do they guarantee that? And they said, well, no. And no, I don't think I want to do that because I had another job offer in the athletic department, helping the football team. I'm like, hey, that's pretty prestigious. It was hourly, wasn't that much, but I figured I'd move up the ranks. So we get to work the first day, and to my dismay, I was there handing out towels, shorts, and athletic supporters. Didn't think that's where I wanted to be, so I went back to my friend. I said, hey, is that job still open? Because I can talk to people on the phone. How hard can it be? And I went and I took a tour, and I met all these people that didn't seem that sharp, that were making a lot of money. I figured, hey, I can do this. I'm in college now. I can do this. And so they hired me, and I realized that I was making a lot of friends but selling no one. You ever know that feeling? I was even talking to people that sent me birthday cards, but they still didn't buy from me. I'm like, wow, what is the difference? How can I do this? And so that's when I really started studying the world of persuasion, motivation, and influence, and watching the high producers and do what they do, because I've always been in the trenches. And this was the type of telemarketing center where the operator would call you up and give you a number. And you would say it would either be real estate or weight loss or stock market or tax liens, these different programs. And the operator called me up one day, and I was just mad that I was making all these friends and nobody was buying. And I said, I'm going to do it this time. I'm going to make the sale. And she calls up and she gives me the number. I look it up, and it's real estate. And it didn't work. And then it called up again. I go, no, this time I was even more motivated to do it. And so I looked it up again. It was weight loss. So this gentleman came on the phone. I was all excited. I'm like, well, sir, how long have you been overweight? And there was this long pause. I'm like, oh, no. And so he says, well, 10, 15 years. I go, how many pounds do you need to lose? An even longer pause. Like, well, 50 pounds. And we started talking about it, and we're going through it. I'm connecting, doing the things. And about 10, 15 minutes in the conversation, he says, "What's this got to do with real estate?" Like, oh no. I'm like, well, we want our investors to be healthy. I didn't know what to say. And I learned that in sales and persuasion, it's not about me, about what I want. It's about serving other people and helping other people. And that's the true form of persuasion that we're going to be talking about today, taking it step by step by step.